ArtSpark Texas presents a community conversation with James Burnside.
Hey everyone, welcome to Community Conversation with ArtSpark Texas. I'm Susan Slattery, Director of Outreach, and I'm here with James Burnside, our November Artist of the Month. And James is going to be talking about writing and being a playwright and many other things that may just come up in this conversation. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Ms. Boy, who will be interviewing, chatting with James, and also our director, Celia Hughes, was with us, and one of our social influencers, Jordan Huerta. Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Hey, James, I love your pink shirt. Real men wear pink.
Absolutely.
And you was in the Navy, so you must be a real man.
No, I was in the Air Force.
Air Force, that's right. Air Force. Even more real a man. I welcome here to do this with us. I'm really glad you are. I'm really glad that you're our Artist of the Month. And you and I chatted earlier because you, for somebody who does not like to be on screen or on stage, have done a lot of public things in the last few months. Everything from acting with Tilt and being interviewed and getting a book, a play published, right?
Yeah.
There's a book just come out. You want to tell us what that is?
It's a play called Dead Mommy Jokes that was published by online by an organization in Canada, a journal in Canada called Fleas on the Dog. And I'm not sure it's the weirdest thing I ever wrote, but it's very close to the weirdest thing I ever wrote. So I'm thrilled that they published it.
Well, having seen some of your scripts, that is now makes that play really fascinating. You have a very weird mind, and I love that about you. You think in a way where you make connections to things that other people might not get until you come full circle and they come back to where you started and they go, oh. With a kid with a brain like that, how did you like to write when you were a kid? Is that something you've always done?
No. I was excellent in math and science. My mother was a naturalist, but she was a painter, but she was a naturalist. And my father was a geologist. So I looked at a lot of rocks as a kid. I loved math. I found math very easy. I still remember my calculus. But at the age of 17, I realized that my brain thought in terms of dialogue. I was constantly talking to people and responding to what they were saying to me and trying to figure out the best way to say something. And I loved words. I thought words were fun.
Mm-hmm.
I took an etymology class in college, and it was one of my very favorite courses. So I wondered if I shouldn't be a writer at the age of a TV, and I love television. So I watched a lot of television and wondered if I shouldn't be a TV writer. My dad was not going to stand for that and sent me to college, and I did great in art and math and science, except I was a pothead. So that was a problem. And eventually I got married, did not graduate from college.
Mm.
My wife almost immediately got pregnant, and being a writer and having no way of supporting her, no job skills whatsoever, I joined the Air Force. You get free babies in the Air Force. Um,
Well, there's got to be a reason to join the Air Force.
yeah, well, I didn't, I, I, I wanted to have my family near me. I didn't want to have my family and in the Air Force, you're much more likely to be able to have your family with you than if you're out on a ship at sea or, uh, digging trenches in Germany or, you know, on the Korean Peninsula. Um,
Hmm.
so
So
I
how
did.
did you make that transition then from being in the military and having a family and not really being a kid? I mean, like me, I was writing poems when I was really young, and I just always written. And a lot of writers will say that, they'll say, oh, I've just always written, I have to write. Um, so how did that transition happen for you from somebody who did not identify or have a big passion as a kid to be a writer?
Well, in college, I did study some writing in college.
Hmm.
Like I said, I loved etymology. I took some English classes, one of which was a play class, and in English, in English at UT, and I loved that class. We read some plays that I just went, wow, that is amazing. And like I say, I already knew I thought in dialogue, so um, I wrote a little in college till I got married and moved on, and then I had a life for I don't know till from 1980, 1970. Let's see, I was married in 77. From 1977 until 2000, I didn't do much writing. I did a little. I wrote a poem here and there, and in the end of 1999, 2000, I started. A lot of this got I came back to school after getting out of the Air Force. I had two children, and one of them was a 10-month-old boy, and he died. Um,
Sorry.
and that silenced me in many ways for a long time.
Right.
But about 2000, I started writing. I'd been riding my bicycle. I gave up my car and was riding a bicycle to work. My my wife and I were commuter cyclists, and I don't know. It gave me a lot of time to think, and I started to write again. Poetry at first, and my wife saw how I was getting up every morning and doing writing, and she said, and she was making, my wife is a very talented woman, and she was providing us with an excellent living. And she said, stop working, start writing again.
Wow. Every writer's dream, right?
Every writer's dream. And I started writing again. And I've been writing ever since. Um, Even through the 10 years when we were foster parents to teenage daughters, I wrote. Um, and um, the last couple of years, I've started collaborating, and I love that.
Hmm.
I've started collaborating with ArtSpark on a piece, and I have another friend who is uh, through Tilt. Adam dumped me into the Jewish Community Center. They wanted a playwright, someone who could help them learn how to write plays. Some of their writers. I said, okay, I'll hang out with a bunch of writers who want to learn how to write plays. And met a gentleman who was a computer programmer, and we're working on yeah, he's very good. He's really smart, and much more organized than I am. As you can see from the chaos of my walls how well organized I am. And we've written a
Well,
couple of plays together.
that's an ideal collaboration, though. It's like to work with somebody who is very different than you, who can fill in the gaps in yourself. I find that's one of my favorite ways to work, for sure.
Yeah, and he does too. He appreciates
Mhm.
the way as you pointed out, the way my screwball mind works, and he appreciates that part, and I appreciate his. We're writing historical plays, so he dives in deep on the history.
Mhm.
Now, I learned the history, but I am not going to read a tome on the Crusades. I'm not going to do it. I will read information on the organization of the Crusades and, this, that, and the other thing, and I'll read a little fiction about the Crusades, but I am not going to read a history book about the Crusades.
Well,
He
I have
does.
to say, though, working with you on the play, I have been so in awe of the amount of reading you've done and research you've done. Do you want to talk a bit more about the play and that process for you? Because it's been a heavy process for all of us involved in it. And you found some things that are not common knowledge. There's parts of the story that are, but you found some really interesting pieces of information. Now, tell us about that.
I do love to dig around in history. I really do. I've written science fictions and I've written comedies and I've written all kinds of silly things, but I do love history. And the chance when Celia came to me and said, let's work on a piece, I went, well, I don't know anything about the history. I need to find out about the history of this.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever we are today is based on the history. And so I started reading about the history of people with disabilities in America. And institutions have been such a vital and disturbing part of that history. And it just drew me in. It just drew me. And Austin has one of the oldest institutions for people with disabilities in the nation. It's not the oldest by any means, but it is a very old one, and it was created when a lot of institutions in this country were created, just prior
Mm-hmm.
to the Civil War and during the Civil War and after the Civil War. So, and one of the historians I found early on had written specifically about Austin State Hospital, or the Texas State Asylum for the Insane, as it was called back then. If you're familiar with Austin, what is now Guadalupe and runs past the Austin State Hospital was originally named Asylum Road. Anyway, I as you can see, I get lost in the
Yes, you
history.
do.
I get lost
One
in
of the things in the history, but one of the things about that research was realizing how much the interplay of race and class and ableism is like manifest in these institutions and throughout the history of disability.
and because my brain works the way it does, I wanted to show it all. I wanted to show the whole history from the 1840s to the present. And y'all helped me and encouraged me to do that, and gave me permission to do that. And where we are now, it's not done yet, but I'm still having fun. I'm still reading history about it. I'm still dreaming dreams about it.
Mm-hmm.
And enjoying the heck out of it.
You know, that's one of the things I like about you as an inspiring writer and playwright to me, is that you're still having fun. Like, you do it because it's fun. You know, often when we're involved in a project, y'all were talking earlier about doing acting when you were younger and going, oh, why did I put myself through this torture? I mean, I think both writers and actors all have that experience in the middle of a project, but we get that passion from it. Do you want to, you said, we talked about you doing a little exercise with everybody, because one of the things you talked about, I've heard you say a number of times, is like shifting to writing dialogue becomes a hurdle for people. People think they can't write dialogue. And so we talked about that, and you came up with something for us all to write.
I spent a couple of summers writing every day to a prompt I was given. And I went through my prompts and found one that I thought was just perfect for us. And let me share it with you. And let me talk 1 second about what a prompt is. A prompt is not a formula. A prompt is meant to stimulate the imagination. If what you write has absolutely nothing to do with the prompt, but came from where the prompt led you, perfect. Mm-hmm. If you take the prompt and go literally with it, that's perfect too. They're meant to stimulate the imagination, and wherever you go with it is great. So this is a prompt. Let me find. This is a prompt from June 12th, 2015. I spent all summer 90 plays in 90 days. This is from Allison Gregory, a playwright. A character describes a controversial piece of art to her blind lover. So, you know, 2 characters, 4 characters if you want, no characters, and a controversial piece of art, you know, if it's 1 page or 10 pages or 2 lines, or if you just sat there frustrated staring at the page, perfect, because I do that a lot.
Yeah, it's a valid free writing exercise to keep writing, this is stupid, this is stupid, this is stupid, until something else comes up. And so the challenge is to write it as that dialogue.
Yes, as a play, as a work of theater. Do your best.
Okay. Oh, hi, Sheila. You're just in time to do the writing. Cool.
Hi.
Hi. The prompt, you got a pen? The prompt, do you want to tell her, James?
The prompt is, oh, let me get it. A character describes a controversial piece of art to her blind lover. And we'll go.
You want to go with 10 minutes?
10 minutes works for me.
Is that right, Susan, you think?
She gave a thumbs up.
All right, good. I'll set a timer here. I should turn on.
I give it 2 coughs. Cough, cough. Sounds good.
Okay. All right, it's starting now. So if you're still writing, please finish your sentence, and shall we see what if people want to share? James, would you like to hear?
Yes, I would love to hear. I wrote 2.
All right. Oh, good. Oh, then I think you should go first.
Okay, I'll go first. Toby and Ralph are in an art museum. Toby, what do you mean I can't touch it? Ralph, whispering loudly, they don't want you touching the art, Toby. Toby, It's a sculpture, isn't it? Ralph, yes. Carved out of a piece of rock, right, Ralph? Ralph, yes. Toby, carved out of a piece of rock, right, Ralph? Right. It's a rock, right? Ralph, it's a rock. I can't possibly hurt a piece of rock. Ralph, that's not the point. Toby, then what is the point? Just to frustrate all the poor blind people who can't see the frickin' rock? Ralph, what if 1,000,000 people came in here and wanted to touch it? Everyone would put a little smudge of greasy fingers somewhere on the sculpture. After 1,000,000 fingers, that's a lot of greasy fingerprints all over this lovely piece of art. So what, Toby? So what? Well, that's not what the artist created. Toby, it's a rock. In 1,000,000 years, it will be a pile of sand, whether I rub my greasy little fingers all over it or not. What the artist created is something that will change over time, no matter what. Greasy fingers or no greasy fingers. Ralph, I'm not going to argue with you. I will let the guard deal with you. End of play.
That was
Yay.
good.
Oh, Toby has arrived just in time to miss the writing exercise. Typical. Okay. Would anyone else like to read?
And he missed the play about him. Well,
Yeah.
I went on to the controversial art portion of it.
Ooh, go ahead, Celia.
So I don't know. I kind of thought that this was a male and a female and a male. The male was blind, but you know it could go either way. So it starts with a female. We are in a large room. Male, is this where the dildo is? What? What did you say? I heard Glass say that this sculpture is gay. And your point is, why would you think that this monumental marble piece that occupies a quarter of the room would be a dildo? Well, I was being polite. A long pause. Can you tell me what it looks like? Can I touch it? He approaches with his hands outstretched. A guard, looking alarmed, moves across the room toward them. No, you can't touch it. This is a work of art. And besides, it is about 10 feet tall with sharp points extending out all around the base. Now that's good. Now we're getting somewhere. What else? There's an arrow piercing the center with small heads dripping off the point. The heads have gaping mouths and empty eyes. Pause. So why is this piece considered one of his masterpieces? Get it? Masterpieces? Okay, I think it's time we move on to the next room. People are beginning to stare.
That was awesome, Celia. I loved it.
Yeah. This is
I'll go.
from.
I know.
Go ahead.
I guess I'll go next. Because it goes kind of along with that. So this would be as if I was talking to my girlfriend. So I'd be like, we're describing a painting that's in like a museum, and I'd be like, it's a beautiful place, unlike any other. It has yellow grass. It has a beautiful sun or moon in the corner. It moves and like wind in a very wind-like motion. It looks like stars at night. It's so detailed, so distinctive. It's almost as if the painter could visualize it better than he could hear it speak to him and say, I imagine the image description below. In the image description below, it says he lost one ear. But who knows? Maybe there's more to this painting or more to this painter. It's definitely GOGHING, going places.
Mm.
Do you still want to have that picnic underneath this starry night? So it kind of goes with Celia's.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think my couple are in the same exhibition as Celia's. Okay. Molly. Wow. Lois. What? Molly. Silence. Molly turns her head in different directions, upside down, sideways, looks confused. Molly. Look, Louise. What? Molly. Well, I'm not sure. Louise. What do you mean? What is it? Molly, that's the problem. I don't know how to describe it. Louise. Well, reaches out and touches a plaque on the wall, reading the braille. It's called Fishing for Gold. Huh. Molly, huh? Louise. Oh, what number is it? Look it up in the program. What does it say there? Molly. Okay, hang on. It says Carl Jung had a passion for alchemy. This work was inspired by his notes and discoveries. Silence. Well, that doesn't help. Louise reaches out as if to touch it. Molly, what are you doing? Louise, well, if you can't tell me, I thought I'd just look myself. Molly, you can't do that. There's a guard right over there. Louise, well, let him throw me out. I don't care. I'll sue. ADA. Louise, that's a big risk to take when it won't matter anyway. Louise, why? Molly, it's a photograph. Louise, oh, for goodness sake, just tell me. Molly, whispering, it's an asshole. Molly, who? Louise, who? Molly, no, I don't know. I can't see their face.
Yeah, it's the same exhibit. It was the
Well, I can see where everyone's mind is this evening.
Well, mine isn't.
Okay, come on then.
Okay. Now I figured that would get covered for me, so that I wouldn't have to do that. Okay. This is Jane and Jim. Jane is Jim is the person who is blind. Jane is they're both lovers. Okay. Jane, it's hilarious. Jim, what? Jane, this painting, it's huge and green and makes no sense at all. Jim, so that's it? It's green and it's big? Jane, yeah, and it's ridiculous. I don't get all the fuss. Jim, is there anything else? A person? A tree? A house? A cow? Jane, not really. Well, there's a person, but they're really far away. Jim, how big is the canvas? Jane, well, maybe 6 feet by 8 feet. Jim, that's a lot of green. Jane, well, there's a big dog. A dog. A dog? Jane, yes, it's green too, so it doesn't really show up that well. Jim. Okay, well, what's the dog look like? Jane. Green. Jim. Green. What kind of dog is it? Big, small, ugly, furry? Jane. Big. And it's a mutt. Squinty eyes, kind of sad looking. Jim. So what's controversial about that? Jane. It's bigger than the man. Jim. So? Jane. Well, it's eating the man. Jim. Ugh, is it all bloody? Jane. Well, yes, but it's green blood and he's laughing. And that's as far as I got.
Yeah. Anybody else? Kristen, Gina, Toby, anything else? Nope. Okay.
I
Go
wrote
ahead.
something, but I'm not really want to share after.
Okay, no problem.
Excellent work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
I had to actually look up what a controversial art piece is because I couldn't think of one.
Oh, I cheated. I just made one up because I couldn't. That didn't even occur to me to use a real one.
But
Jane,
I just
go ahead.
This piece is unusual. It's a white urinal, you know, like in a men's restroom. This guy in 1917, he submitted it as a ready-made sculpture and named it Fountain. I guess he had potty humor. And that's as far as it got, because it took me a long time to realize I could actually look up an artwork and stuff.
Gina, that artwork appears on a play I wrote on the
Really?
cover of. Yes, I wrote it. I have a personal fascination with urinals. I wrote a one-man show for a friend of mine, and there's a picture of that particular urinal on the cover of the playbill.
That's so funny.
I think that's an issue for Freud rather than Jung, but you know, let's just not go there. So how was it to write dialogue? I mean, I'd be interested for everybody, you know, like, was it different to write dialogue than to write? Susan, you don't write stuff like that normally?
I do.
You do?
Well, not usually, but I have written a lot of dialogue, and I actually had somebody come to me that was in a filmmaking class and said, you know, you really seem like you are good with dialogue, particularly between women, and I need help writing my dialogue for my film. And so I helped him.
Wow.
And yeah, that was kind of cool. I actually really like writing dialogue, but so thank you, James, for, I haven't written dialogue in quite a while, but that was probably some of the first stuff that I wrote when I was a kid. I would make little plays.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Thanks, James. That was great. Does
Hey,
anybody have any
y'all-
questions for James?
Y'all were the stars, not me. I just picked out something I'd done before. The piece I wrote in 2016 is kind of different. But anyway, we won't go there.
So if anybody else has any questions for James, this would be a good time as we're coming up on 10:02. We're past 10:02. If not, I was going to ask you, James, you said I know you cover environmental themes and science and sci-fi. Is there anything you haven't dared write about? Or is there anything you haven't written about that you would like to write about?
There's lots of things I'd like to write about that I haven't written. One of the things I keep is just lists of ideas for plays.
Mm.
And we went from the ArtSpark building on Saturday to another place, and I met a guy, and I hope he responds to my email at some point. He's a history teacher at Austin High, and I want to write short, high school one acts on Texas history, because Texas history is so
Mm-hmm.
but I need help because so much of it involves Latinx people, Mexican people, and I need. This gentleman was from Chile, but a history teacher, and I think he could. I need some translation help because I think part of it has to be in Spanish. I just think it has to be. So I haven't dared write those pieces yet, but I want to.
Right. Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Kristen.
Is there a subject, James, that you just won't write about?
I'm a privileged white male. I have discomfort. If I wrote a screenplay, this was many years ago, that was about Pullman porters in 1906. Most of the characters were black. And, that piece has stayed in my files because, I'm not a black man. I don't know that I did a lot of research, but I can't, I'm not a black man. And I'm not sure it's appropriate for me to write about black men. And I worry about that. But so I do write characters who are Hispanic and black and just put them, the one thing I am sure about is that as long as I'm treating them like people, because they're people, then I'm probably, okay, but it takes some thought and some concern. And it's one of the reasons I look for collaborators, is because I don't know everything.
Right. It's kind of a double bind too, because most play characters are white, and so like, how do we broaden the characters that we write for, so that, or I guess one of the ways you can one of the ways you can do it is to have them be blind, like this character could be one thing or another. But then if you're writing historically, there's things historically that carry messages that are specific to people from different genders, races, disabilities, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it takes some, it's why collaboration, I think, is really important in this day and age.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, what was my other? You're involved in ScriptWorks. You want to tell people a bit about that if they don't know what it is, or how you got what that
Sure.
does?
ScriptWorks is a organization that supports playwrights in Austin primarily, but we have members all over Texas and, in fact, all over the country. And we provide seed money for certain types of, pre-production sorts of work. We provide support. We have a salon once a month where a member can have a play read. This weekend we're having the weekend fling, and they're going to give us some ingredients like we just got, and everybody's going to write a 10-minute play, and there'll be 30 or 40 plays. The top 8 will be produced, and playwrights get paid for that if you're one of the top 8.
Cool.
And it's nice to get a check once in a while. There's
Hmm.
there's no better validation than cash. But except I love writing. I just love writing. The torture is even worth it when you're sitting there staring at a blank piece of paper, frustrated and not knowing where to go.
Or you've written for hours and you go back and you can't work out how to make it right.
Right.
Yeah.
I was telling my young friend Kristen, as she was trying to write the current play, just barf it up on the page. You can fix it later.
Mhm.
Get the words out. You can make it perfect later. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time.
Yeah. Just get her done.
Just get her done.
Well, thank you, James. It's 2 minutes to. I think unless there's any last words to say, although I think your last line, there's no better validation than cash, is a good last line.
Get her done is good too.
Get her done.
Barf and
Yeah.
get her done.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, James.
I am
Thank
so
you.
honored by this. I can't tell you. I'm so this is as good a validation as cash.
All right.
And I want to thank you.
You are
Thank
very
you.
welcome. Okay. We look forward to that play that you're all working on. Yeah.
So do
Really,
we.
yeah.
Great.
Hmm.
All right.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Bye, James.
Bye-bye. Bye,
Bye. Thank you.
Jen. Good night.
Thank you to our Arts Park Texas funders: Texas Commission on the Arts, St. David's Foundation, Cultural Arts City of Austin Economic Development, National Endowment for the Arts, Creative Forces, Austin Public Library, Donald D. Hamill Foundation.